Hello and welcome to Hackathon Labs. I'm Mr. Hackathon and I teach you how to build digital solutions. In this video, we are going to explore building your first agent to user interface using this open source project by Google. In this project, Google are making a bet that the future of user interfaces is completely agent generated and adaptable. This could potentially mean when you're talking to an AI assistant and you ask for the best places to eat, let's say in London, it automatically generates a user interface of a list of places, booking forms, and different information. You can see here that we have a gallery of A2UI rendered cards showing different UI compositions that A2UI can achieve. What A2UI is doing is sending JSON format describing the intent of the UI. And then in our case, Gemini is rendering this using its own native component library. I do think there's a future where we're using agents to generate UI that is totally customized to the end user, their intent, their needs, their goals. And I think Google is one of the first kind of innovating in this space. Let's get started with actually building this out. Let's take a look at this in action. So I am going to use a different example, top 5 Jamaican restaurants in, let's say, Chicago. We hit enter. This is using Gemini in the background, Gemini web search to find the restaurants and organize the data for A2UI. We can see here the image is the same default image, but the actual information we have is very different. So when we click more info, it opens this tab for Jet 48 in Chicago. Jamaican food in Chicago looks very interesting. Then what we can do is click book now. Obviously, this is an early version of the product, so there is nothing to book at Jet 48. If we go to Jet 48, it's just ordering locations. We can't actually book a table. We can order, but we can't book a table. The way this sample application is, it says we can book a table and we can't actually do that. So it is rendering this uh, using AI and using A2UI. Even when we click submit reservation, it doesn't actually do anything right now. So the core of it right now, if I refresh, is just this bit, the restaurant finder. So we hit the Chinese restaurants. And here we have our Chinese restaurants in a list that has been created with generative AI. Now, I don't believe this use case is entirely accurate of the power of what we're talking about, because this chat wouldn't just be a restaurant finder. This would be probably how you're using Gemini or how you're using chat GPT or Claude, and more generalized, and it's not just like a regular search. So you could answer what's the top 5 Chinese restaurants in New York, or you could say the top 5 tailors, and it's always going to render the information in the exact way that you might need it. Or you might say, ask about crime rates in New York, and it might render graphs for you. In this particular case, and where we're at now, we just had the restaurant finder that's rendering cards. We're going to work through the example in the repo to help you get started. I'm currently using a Mac. When I was doing this on my Windows desktop, it wasn't quite working. I could get it working on my Mac, so maybe it prefers Mac or Mac systems. Didn't try it on Linux, so at least for Mac, I know this video is going to work for you. The first thing we want to do is clone the repo. Now we also want to go inside that directory of the repo we just cloned. The next thing we want to do is to get a Gemini API key. So I'm going to head over to Gemini. The way I do this is go to AI Studio. And I go to get API key. From there, I will see my current API keys that I have open. So what you're going to need to create an API key, if I actually try to create a new one here, you name your key, but it's going to ask you to start a new cloud project, and that's in Google Cloud Platform. So you're going to need to start a new Google Cloud project. You're going to need to connect the bill into that, and then you'll be able to create API keys. So I am just going to grab my API key here. Maybe I can just hit copy and go back to cursor. What we'll do is we're going to put export, then our Gemini API key, and then our API key. And this is a way for the terminal session to remember our API key so we can use it. If you want something more permanent, you would have to create a config file and then store your API key in the config file. The next thing we want to do is navigate to this particular folder that is samples agent ADK restaurant finder, and we're going to run our backend from here. So we're just going to do cd, paste the path, and now we're in that folder. What we want to do is to get our backend running. So what we're going to do is uv run and a period or a dot. Now our backend is running, but what we need to do is open a new terminal window and get our front end running too. So I'm going to click new terminal. To do the front end, we're going to go to a different directory. So we're going to go cd, and then we are going to find that directory. So we're going to go, it's in renderers and lit. And what we need to do is build the lit renderer. So we need to grab this path like that. And now we're in. So what we're going to do is npm install. And now we're going to do npm run build. The next thing we need to do is go to samples client lit shell. So come out of renderers. We want samples client lit and shell. That's what we want. We're going to copy the path. So we're in that folder. We want to do a similar thing. Install the node packages. And now we want to do npm run dev. Now this is opening localhost for us. If we reduce the size of some of these. And this is what it looks like in action, similar to what you first saw at the beginning. Top 5 Chinese restaurants in New York. We go ahead and hit enter. We made a slight error that we want to amend. So we need to keep our API key in the same terminal that we're running our backend in. And I created a new terminal. So I'm going to actually do this again. So I have a new terminal. What I'm going to do is my API key. So we have my API key in this terminal now. Head over to the restaurant finder. So cd, and I want to go to samples. Then I want to go to agent, ADK, restaurant finder, and this is what I want. So now I'm in that folder. I'm going to do UV run. So now this is running. Before it wasn't running successfully. And so what we're going to do is we're going to add a new terminal. If we go back, we'll see that's still running. And we don't need to do the npm install anymore. We can actually just go straight to the shell client and do npm run dev. So we want to go to samples. I think it's client, lit, and shell. And we can just do npm run dev, or we should be able to. It's going to open up a very similar, the same thing that it has here, but should be working now. So top 5 Chinese restaurants in New York, press enter. That troubleshoots our problem. We can see it's working, looking for tables, and we can see it brings back our options. If we was to click on one of these, let's see if this opens. We can see here. Now, what I have noticed is this is currently how we want it, but it is currently static data. So let's turn around and do London. What I expect to see, because I believe it's static data, is the same information that was there before. Actually, it's not showing anything. It's not showing anything at all. And it's having a lot of trouble doing that. So we do need to make some changes to make this work as expected. And that's what we'll do right now. So you got to the point of the tutorial that kind of walked through what you would do if you just follow the documentation on GitHub. And now we are going to make some adjustments that's not exactly in the GitHub to get this working as expected. What we're going to do now is use the cursor agent to prompt it to say, hey, don't use the static data. I want you to use live data and Gemini to produce the results. We're asking cursor agents to not use the static data and to use the results from Gemini. So we're going to hit enter and let it plan those moves and then review the plan it's going to make and take a look at it ourselves and then hopefully make those changes. What it's done now is added the Gemini integration by importing the GenAI packages. It has removed the static data fallback. And so we're going to hit review. So it opens that file. So we can take a look and see those changes. If this is your first time seeing cursor agents in action, this is kind of what it looks like. You prompt it to make some changes. It plans it, it makes those changes. You can review it. You can see what it's added. We can see in the green here, this is what it's added. The red is what it's going to remove. So you want to review all these changes, but we are just going to hit keep. So now I believe it's made all the changes that we want it to make. And we want to run our backend server again. And then we want to run our front end. And we should be able to access real live data. We're in our restaurant finder. And what we want to do is the UV run and period. And that's going to run our backend. Okay, our backend's running. Now we just come back to our front end and we're going to run npm run dev. When we click follow link, it should open localhost right here. Now, instead of Chinese restaurants, I am going to write Indian, and I am going to change the location to London. And we can see this is working as expected. Although the images are not quite what we want, we can see the information is. So we got Dishoom Covent Garden, we got this restaurant, we got Cricket Soho. If we click on more info, let's see if it opens the tab. So we can see Cricket's website. If we're going back, we probably have to do our search again. Yeah. So I'm going to just put Indian restaurants again. In London. And we have our dynamic results just as we want them. That concludes my video on Google's agent to user interface open source project. It's still in early stage public preview, so it's still very early stages. The implementations are functional, but it's still changing a lot. Let me know in the comment section. Do you believe in this project? Do you think the future of UI is agentic? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and happy hacking.